As if it wasn't hard enough to write 50,000 words in 30 days, now you actually have to take that jumbled up mess and turn it into a publishable novel. So what do? Let's discuss. Welcome back to Heart Breathings, where we have now 40,000 subscribers. I honestly cannot believe it. I never dreamed in a million years that I would have 40,000 subscribers ever. And to be here before my 3-year anniversary just means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has supported this channel and has been here liking and subscribing and telling other people. One of the best things you can do to help support me is to share my videos, tell other people about them that you know will enjoy them. Thank you all so much. Let me know in the comments how you would like to celebrate. We could do a Q&A. I could talk about my YouTube journey and what I feel like has made this a successful venture. Let me know what you think, because I would love to do a special video to celebrate 40K. But let's get back to business. So in the month of November, we do our best to write 50,000 words or more, an entire novel in 30 days. The tips that I'm going to give you today are, of course, applicable, and maybe I'm talking specifically about NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. But really, these tips apply anytime you finish a rough draft. So hopefully, even if you didn't participate in NaNoWriMo, these tips will help you get started on editing your novel whenever you happened to have written it. The process of editing, especially if you've never done it before, can be very daunting. I completely understand. You have this draft that is messy and there's mistakes and the plot didn't go where you thought it was going to go. The characters had a mind of their own. And the idea of taking all of that and making it into a cohesive novel that other people are going to find interesting and in fact want to pay money for is terrifying, to be honest. My biggest advice to you at this stage of the process, especially if you've never edited a novel to completion before, is to take that pressure and that feeling and thought that, oh my God, I have to turn this giant mess into a book that other people want to read and pay for. Because that is what is going to mess with your mind the most, is this idea that you have to make it a full novel. Stop thinking about the fact that you're writing a novel. Just think about the fact that you actually have words on the page and you have a direction, and you're just going to take it one tiny step at a time to make it better. And then you make it better again, and you make it better again. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. You started out with this giant jumble of a mess that made no sense, and slowly but surely you find pieces that connect. But if you worried about like, oh, I've got to make this into an image and it's got to be done in this amount of time, you might start to freak out. So instead, just think about it like you're putting this puzzle together. You're just going to find one piece and connect it to the next, and you're going to just go through the process one step at a time. I'm going to give you my best tips after actually writing, editing, and publishing 27 novels to great success, including the novel that I struggled with so much during the month of November. That book, Fate's Surrender, came out and hit the top 50 at Apple Books, #1 in 6 different categories at Amazon, and the top 50 at Google Play Books, and has had mostly, if not all, 5-star reviews. I stopped looking after the first week because I don't like to read bad reviews, so don't tell me in the comments if you see any. I published that book on January 15th, and I followed this system of editing, so let me share that with you. But first, I do want to say this. When it comes to writing and editing novels, everybody is going to have their own process. So if your process looks different, or you try what I'm telling you and you think, okay, that doesn't work for me, trust your own intuition there, because you are going to know your own flow, your own way of doing things better than anyone else could tell you. But in the end, you'll never figure out your own process if you don't just get your hands dirty and get started and feel your way through it. And sometimes that is going to be scary or overwhelming, and it's going to feel like this huge job. So when it starts to feel big and overwhelming, go back to the basics, take it one line at a time, one step at a time, and you will make it through this. Pay attention as you start these edits to what feels good, what gets you into flow, what makes you excited to keep working. and then do more of that. That being said, here are my tips for what to do with your NaNoWriMo novel. So the first thing you have to look at, specifically with NaNoWriMo, since you're writing 50,000 words in 30 days, is did you actually finish the book? Most of the time when you have a completed rough draft and you're starting your edits, you know you finished and you got to the end. But when it comes to Nano, sometimes we're just focused on that 50,000 number and we didn't actually finish the climax and resolution of the novel. And in fact, most novels are more like 70 to 100,000 words, depending on your genre. So it's quite possible that you hit that 50,000 words and were so exhausted that you just needed to take a break for the holidays and you never actually finished the book. So let's talk about what happens if you didn't finish the story. In my mind, there are two scenarios here. First scenario is that you didn't finish the story, but you know what's happening next. So maybe you made it 50,000 words in and you've got maybe 3 or 4 chapters to go, but you pretty much know what's going to happen. In that case, just get yourself back into the story, maybe go back and read through the last couple chapters or make notes or scene cards as to what goes next and just dive right in and finish that draft before you start editing. I would not recommend going all the way back to the story at the beginning and editing things. And here's why. If you start editing from the beginning, you could get lost in this never-ending loop of changing things and rewriting and changing and never actually finishing the novel itself. And that is a very dangerous place to be. The other thing is that you might end up editing and changing things that are going to get cut anyway. So my recommendation for most people, if you know what happens next, you just didn't write it, is to finish the book, then go back and edit it later. Scenario number 2 is that you finish those 50,000 words, but that novel went off the rails. You have no idea what happens next. You were just struggling to hit that 50,000 and you're lost. This is basically where I was when I finished my very first Nano back in 2007, because I basically pantsed the whole thing. I had a rough idea of what was going to happen and it went completely off the rails. Like I had no idea what was going on in that story and I was just writing random scenes to try to hit the 50,000 words. And you know what happened to that novel? It never got finished. It's still sitting on my hard drive at 50,000 words with no ending to it. Do not let this happen to you. If this is the case, continuing on to write a novel that you have no idea what it is or what it's about really because it went so crazy is probably not the best idea. So in this case, what I recommend doing is going back to the beginning and seeing if you can map out the overall structure. Read back through those 50,000 words like I'm about to tell you for the edits and figure out where the story is going. You're going to have a bit of a messier job in front of you, but the first step is definitely going to be reading back through, seeing what's salvageable and where you think the rest of the story is going. Once you have that structure down, then you can finish the book and get that rough draft done. So this next part of the video, we're going to talk about what do you do once the rough draft is actually finished. If you have not yet watched my entire video series on how to edit your novel, that is a playlist that I will have linked for you down below, and I'm going to go through some similar steps. But here today, even though I'm going to be walking you through a similar process, I'm going to go a little bit into more detail in terms of the beginning of the editing process. And again, this is just what works for me, so take it or leave it, and that's fine. For me, the very first thing I do is create a scene outline. This involves going back to the very beginning of the book, no matter how messy it is, no matter how terrible I think the dialogue is or anything else, I go back and I start reading from the beginning. I usually will read it on a Kindle or I will print it out and I will start making notes. But basically I create a scene outline or a chapter outline that has the following information. The name of the POV character if I'm writing multiple points of view. So if you've got a hero and a heroine in a romance novel, or like my Fate Surrender novel that I just finished, you have 8 different point of view characters. You want to have like chapter 1, Parrish. So we know whose point of view we're in. The setting, so where is Parrish in this scene? Where does it take place? the basic conflict or action of this scene. What is the purpose and how does it move the plot forward? Where does this fit into the structure of the novel, if you know, or if it has a specific place, like is this the Act 1 climax or the doorway of no return? I will make a note about that. And then finally, what is the total word count at the end of this chapter? So if it's scene number 1 at the end and it ends at 2,100 words, I would write 2,100 words. When I get to, let's say, chapter 5 and I hit the end of it, I will mark where am I in terms of word count. So that might be, by the end of chapter 5, it might be 10,565 words into the novel. I do this specifically because I like to see the pacing of the book. So we can talk more about pacing. I do have a couple of videos here on this channel about pacing, but basically you want that Act 1 climax to come somewhere around 20 to 25% through your novel. So if you have a 100,000 word novel and your Act 1 climax is happening at 10,000 words, you've got a problem. Or alternately, if you've got a 100,000 word novel and your Act 1 climax is not happening until 35,000 words into the book, you've got a pacing problem. So it's important when you're making that scene outline to mark where you are in the word count. During this read through where I'm creating the scene outline, I am not editing anything. I'm not changing words. I'm not adding dialogue. I am just making notes and observations. I'm writing down the data of what happens in the scene so that I get an idea of what happened in the book. Sometimes during Nano, the whole thing can become a blur. So you're refamiliarizing yourself with that book, but you're not changing anything, no matter how much you may want to. Step 2, once you've got that scene outline, is to take an overview of the structure of your book. Even if you pantsed your way through Nano, meaning you didn't have an outline, you just wrote intuitively, next scene, now is the time that you really need to take a look at the structure of your novel. So where is the Act 1 climax? What is happening at the midpoint of the novel? What is happening in the black moment? And are all those pieces there? If you have no idea what I'm talking about with those different types of scene structures, it's possible that you use a different type of plotting method. So just take whatever your personal roadmap is for structure and try to map your novel to it. Does it fit? What's missing? What's really well done? And what needs to be added to the novel or changed or shifted around? This part of the process is one of the longer pieces for me because I have to really go through and see if this is the strongest development of the story as possible. If you want to go a little deeper with this, I do also have a series of videos here on YouTube about how to plot your novel, and that will walk you through the type of structure that I follow, which is the basic 3-act structure. But if you follow something else like Save the Cat or different types of plotting your novel ideas, then just follow that structure and make sure all the pieces are in place. Number 3 is all about identifying which scenes you're going to keep, which scenes you're going to toss. So even though you're 3 steps into this process and potentially weeks into it, you still haven't actually touched any of the words yet. So this is where you're going to take that bird's eye view and you're going to say, okay, what's staying? What's going to go? You might be like, well, this whole scene where they go to the college or they do this competition, that really doesn't fit into the novel. So I'm going to cut it. And then you make another note about, you know what? I actually feel like there needs to be a scene in between this one and this one where they have a conversation. So that's a change that needs to happen. So you're identifying what scenes are cut, what scenes need to be added to it, and what things need to be strengthened. So in this stage of the process, I will often make note about breadcrumbs or threads that are woven throughout the story, like, oh, there's this one thing happening with Zoe in the book. Have I really woven that thread through the book strongly enough, or do I need to add a few more scenes where we see Zoe doing this certain thing? So you're identifying story threads, you're identifying if you're writing mystery or romance, you're identifying those pieces of the character arc that need to be strengthened and changed. But the main thing is you're identifying what scenes stay and what scenes need to go, what scenes need to be written. Step 4 for me is to go through and fill in the scenes that were missing. So at this point, I will have notes or a note card that says in between chapters 7 and 8, I need to add a scene where Zoe's talking to the boy. And I will know story structure wise why this is important. So this is a scene that sets up this conflict, or it's a scene that strengthens my character arc, and it was missing from the draft. So instead of starting at the beginning for myself and starting line edits where you go through and you're fixing dialogue and word choice, I like to fill in those missing scenes. For me in particular, battle scenes or sex scenes, which I don't write a lot of sex scenes in my books. They're never in my young adult novels, but I do have a few new adult novels that do have them, and they're always hard for me to write. I don't necessarily enjoy writing them. Battle scenes also, especially because I write magic, can be really tough logistically. Like, how is she going to throw this fireball? How do I explain that? So when I'm fast drafting, I will sometimes just put in placeholders and I'll say battle scene with Harper here, and I won't actually write the scene because I know that it needs more space and time for me to really sit down and craft that scene. So when I'm fast drafting, I just skip it. So this step 4 in my process is to go back and identify those scenes that I skipped, usually battle scenes or tough emotional scenes, and fill them in. So that means writing a little bit out of order. If you can't do this, then feel free to go back to the beginning and as you're editing, rewrite those scenes. It's really up to you as to what feels better for you. I can just go and slip those scenes in, but some people I know need to just start back at the beginning and add it in when you get to it. So either order you go in is totally fine. You just need to get the whole book finished. So if you have missing scenes, now's the time to put them back in. Number 5 is making those developmental changes. So we're talking still, even though we're 5 steps in, about the bigger story structure. So this is where you're really getting that structure in place. You're fixing the developmental things, the conversations that needed to happen, strengthening the character arc, having that climax be climaxy and really like a big set piece, and making sure that the ending has that emotional beat that you want it to have. So you're kind of fixing and changing those big developmental things that need to change in the story. So this is where you actually cut things and you make those scenes fit together better until finally at the end of step 5, you have your entire draft the way that you really want it to be. This is as close to a final draft as you've been so far because you've cut the things that need to be cut. You've filled in the missing scenes. You've bridged the gap between, scene and sequel and reaction and that sort of thing. And you've got basically an entire novel. Once you get to that point and everything there at those first 5 steps is done, now it's time to go piece by piece, line by line through your novel. So this is usually called line edits, and you're still just self-editing at this point. Maybe as part of your process, you've sent it out to a critique partner or a group that you belong to, which is fine too. But for me, at least in this part of the process, no one has read this book yet. This has still just been all me. But at this point of the process, what I like to do is something that I was talking about in my previous video about how I finish up my edits. If you want to check out the end of the NaNoWriMo diaries for me and talking about how I edited the final edits for Fate's Surrender, that is in my previous video here on this channel. Basically what I do is I open up a new Google Doc, totally fresh Google Doc, and I will just copy one chapter over to the fresh, like from the draft to the fresh doc at a time, just one chapter at a time so that I don't feel overwhelmed and it doesn't feel like this huge job. I just have this one chapter. And this is the point where I will go line by line and choose better words, stronger emotions, add in better dialogue. And at this point, I'm not really changing the story. I'm just strengthening what's already there. But for me, this is getting toward the end of the process. If you want to hear the nitty-gritty of where I go from there, definitely check out my video on how to edit your own novel that I'll have linked down below. That's it, you guys. That's all you do. Just get started right there with step 1 and create that scene outline once your rough draft is really done. create that scene outline, and go step by step. I promise that it will feel so much better once you've seen and really gotten a feeling for what's there, what's usable, what needs to be rewritten. It feels like very tedious work, and sometimes it can be emotionally difficult to sort of face the truth of what shape this novel is in, but a lot of times we think it's worse than it is. So when you get to that stage and you're reading through, chances are you're going to find, yeah, there are some scenes that are really crap here. Like, what were you thinking? Was this something you wrote at 2 a.m. when you were half delirious? Maybe. But you're also going to find hidden gems that you forgot you wrote because you were writing so fast. And you're going to be like, holy moly, this scene is really good. Did I write that? Am I secretly a genius? And yes, you are. There are going to be moments of brilliance in your rough draft. So cherish that. Pat yourself on the back. And for anything that you run across that is just not good enough, just know that you can now fix it. This is your opportunity to make it the very best it can be. So take it one tiny step at a time. You've totally got this, and I cannot wait to hear about how your edits went and when you finally get this book published, either through a traditional publisher or self-publishing. Which does bring up another thing that is exciting and happening here in my life and in this Heart Breathings community, which is my Publish and Thrive course, which is all about how to self-publish your novel and truly succeed long-term in self-publishing and indie publishing. That course is now open for enrollment. It will only be open until February 7th. We start February 8th, and it is a 5-week course. And we cover everything from your first idea and how to figure out what genre you're really writing, to how to set up your business, how to format and upload your books, how to create back matter and marketing, how to create your website and your author platform. What do you do with taxes? We literally cover everything you need to be successful, including the author mindset. So I would love for you to join us. If you're thinking that you really would like to indie publish, this is an amazing course. Understanding the process and the steps and getting your entire foundation of what you're going to be writing and really solidifying your strategy of how you want to self-publish. Like, do you want a rapid release? What genre? Are you going to use a pen name? And you want to start answering those questions, and you know it's going to motivate you to have support from not only me personally, but also the community of more than 600 authors who have taken this course. Then you should come and join us now. Don't wait. Once you sign up, you have lifetime access, so you can go through it when you need it, over and over, self-paced. We also have weekly live 2-hour Q&As with me where you get to personally ask me questions. I will help you go through your strategy. I will help you figure out what genre you're writing or whether you should use a pen name or not. I will be your personal mentor for the next 5 weeks and well beyond. So if you'd like to come join us, enrollment is open now. You can find the link for Publish and Thrive down below. Another exciting thing that's happening is we are running a Word Sprint challenge in my Word Sprints Facebook group. So this is a free challenge, a free Facebook group, and we have daily live writing sprints. But what we're going to do next week is have a challenge that will help you figure out what your sweet spot is for writing sprints. So do you write more if you write 15-minute sprints or 25-minute sprints? Do you write better in the morning or in the evening? And this is going to help you write more faster. So if you want to come join that, there's also a link for that down below. Lots of exciting things happening, and I hope to see you there. Thank you guys so much again for 40,000 subscribers. I am super grateful and so excited to see you again in my next video. Sunday, we will have a live sort of January/February notebook challenge. So I hope you'll join me for that as well. And I will see you then. Bye.